And Venerable, I would like to introduce Charles,
yeah.
and his wife Amanda, Raneen, and her husband Lai, Casey, and Maureen, and this support. Just shortly in the program for tonight, we pay homage to a Triple-Gen. It's a short one, as like we normally do in Cold Point at your place. And we request for 5 precepts. And we request for Parita chanting, just a short one. And Venerable would like to conduct sitting meditation about 15 minutes before we start Dhamma talk. Okay. Just take one each. We pray homage to Triple-Gen. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhamma Namasami Supadipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dhammang saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghang saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tudiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tudiyampi Dhammang saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tudiyampi Saṅghang saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammang saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghang saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijjācarana sampanno sugato lokavidu Anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati sattha deva manusanang buddho bhagava swakato bhagavata dhammo santantiko akaliko ehipasiko opanayiko Pajatang veditapo vinyuhi Supadipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅkho Ujjupadipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅkho ญาญาปาริปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสามีจิปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆญาติตังจัตตาริปุริสายุกานิอัฏฐปุริสาปุกลังเอสาภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆอาหุไนโยปาหุไนโยดังขไนโยอัญจิลการณโยอนุตตรังปุญญเขตังโลกัสสะ and the Buddha word of loving kindness on page 8 in English. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duty and frugal in their way, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise should later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living being there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near or far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the sky and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain the recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fake view. The pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desire, is not born again into this world. Now we are requesting for the refugees and the 5 precepts. มายังพันเดติสารเนสหปัญจศีลานิยาจามาตุริยามปีมายังพันเตติสารเนนะสหปัญจศีลานิเวจามะตติยามปีมายังพันเตติสารเนนะสหปัญจศีลานิยาจามะVenerable Sir, we request the 3 refugees and the 5 precepts for the second time and for the third time.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะ
บุตตัมสารนัมกัจจามิ
บุตตัมสารนัมกัจฉามิ
ธัมมัมสารนัมกัจจามิ
ธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิ
สังฆัมสารนัมกัจจามิ
สังฆัมสารนังกัจฉามิ
ตุติยัมปิพุทธัมสารนัมกัจจามิ
ตุริยัมปิบุตตังสารนังกัจฉามิ
ตุติยัมปิธัมมัมสารนัมกัจจามิ
ตุริยัมปิปิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิ
ตุติยัมปิสังฆัมสารนัมกัจจามิ
ตุริยัมปิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิ
ตติยัมปิพุทธัมสารนัมกัจจามิ
ตติยัมปิบุตตังสารนังกัจฉามิ
ตติยัมปิธัมมัมสารนัมกัจจามิ
ตติยัมปิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิ
ตติยัมปิสังฆัมสารนัมกัจจามิ
ตติยัมปิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิ
สรณกานังเปรปนัม
อามะปันติ
ปานาติปาตาเวรมณีสกขาปะดังสมาธิยามิ
ปานาติปาดาเวรมณีสิกขาปะดังสารนังกัจฉามิ
อาทินาดานาเวรมณีสกขาปะดังสมาธิยามิ
อาดินาดานาเวรมณีสิกขาปะดังสมาธิยามิ
กาเมสุมิจฉาจาระเวรมณีสกขาปะดังสมาธิยามิ
กาเมสุมิชฌาจาราเวรมณีสิกขาปะดังสมาธิยามิ
มุสาวาดาเวรมณีสกขาปะดังสมาธิยามิ
มุสาวาดาเวรมณีสิกขาปะดังสมาธิยามิ
สุราเมรยะมัจจปมาตดานาเวรมณีสกขาปะดังสมาธิยามิ
โสราเมรยมะปะปัฏฐานาเวรมณีสิกขาปะดังสมาธิยามิ
สิเลนะสุขตังยันติสิเลนะโภคสัมปทาสิเลนะนพุตังยันติตัสมาสิลังวิสาเทยิ
สาธุสาธุสาธุ Next we would like requesting for the Parita chanting. Vipati pati pahaya sabba sappati santaya sappatukha vinasaya paritang prutang mangalang. Vipati patiha paya sabba sampati sataya sappa phaya vinasaya puparitang prutang mangalang. Vipati pati pahaya sabba sampati satya sapparoga vinasaya paritang pruta mangalang. Forwarding of misfortune, for the arising of good fortune, for the dispelling of all dukkha, of all fear, and of all sickness, may you chant a blessing and protection.
สัมยะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังสรณังกัจฉามิธัมมังสรณังกัจฉามิสังฆังสรณังกัจฉามิทุติยัมปิพุทธังสรณังกัจฉามิทุติยัมปิธัมมังสรณังกัจฉามิทุติยัมปิสังฆังสรณังกัจฉา ติยามไปสังฆังสารนังเกจามิจิยันโตปุถิยโมเลสักยานังนันทวัตติโนเอวันทวังวิจโยอาวิจยาสิจยมังคะเลอัมปาราจิตปาลังเกไสเสปะวิปากะเรอภิเสเกสัพพะติยานังอากาปาตาปมาตเตสนากาตาสมังคะลังสัพพิยตาสอัตตาสุขนาสมหัตตาจัสยาตังพระมจาริสปฏิยาคินังกายกรรมังวิจากรรมังปฏิยาคินังปฏิยาคินังมโนกรรมังปณิทิเตปฏิยาคินาปฏิยาคินานิกาตวะละพันธัตเตปฏิยาคิเนปิปัสสะเปมังกะลังรักขันตุสัพพเทวตาสัพพพุทธังดัพยเวนัสติยสัตถิปวันตเตปิวัตุสัพพมังกะลังรักขันตุสัพพเทวตาสัพพธรรมิอนุปยเวนัสติยสัตถิปวันตเตปิวัตุสัพพมังกะลังรักขันตุสัพพเทวตาสัพพสังฆิอนุปยเวนัสติยสัตถิปวันตเต
ปุถเทปุถเทโยคาลิตาโตสาวปนโทกามาโตตังแมะแมงทอมเมโยคาลิตาโตสาวทอมโมกามาโตตังแมะแมงสังเคโยคาลิตาโตสาวสังโฆกามาโตตังแมะแมงNext variable would like to conduct meditation for would like to introduce Chris Manning and variable Hạ Xiang Hai and variable Bo.
Sorry, I'm late.
So variable would like to conduct meditation for about 15 minutes before we start talking. Okay. So please set your posture. request for a Dhamma talk. Brahma Jalokadipati Sahampati Katanjali Adivarang Ayakatha Santitha Satta Parajakha Jatika Desitu Dhammang Anusakam Pimang Pajang. The Brahma God Sahampati, Lord of the world, with palm joined in reverence, request in a favor. Beings are here with but a little dust in their eyes. Pray teach the Dhamma out of compassion for them.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. I pay homage to the Blessed One, the Exalted One, the Worthy One, and I would like to pay respect to the Most Venerable Master Kyopo, his name, and I would like to say hello to everyone. I love you today, and for me it's very great opportunity very great opportunity to meet all of you, and actually it is my first trip to Australia, and I would like to thank devotee Su Yin for supporting me, and also Venerable Master Kyopo also support me to visit Australia. And today I'm actually excited and so great honor too, because usually I hardly give Dhamma talk in English, just sometime, and usually in Cambodia. So if any any word that you don't understand me, I'm so sorry too, and I will try my best to give Dhamma talk, and of course we will have some discussion. And as I know from devotee that you all have practiced a lot in Buddhism and have learned a lot Buddhism, so my Dhamma talk just kinds of sharing to you my experience and my knowledge a little bit, because if we talk about the wisdom of the Buddha, is very profound. His teaching for the liberation of all human beings to Nibbana, that is the ultimate bliss and ultimate goal of all practitioners. So I would like to mention the three qualities of the Buddha. The three qualities of the Buddha, that is the quality of purification, we say Visuddhi, Visuddhi in Pali term, and the quality of compassion, we say Karuna,
And the quality of wisdom is a panya. So Visuddhi and Karuna and Panya, this is Buddha conscious and always have in his enlightenment, and he is worthy to venerate and to respect. So we all respect the Buddha because we regard him as a master, as a teacher. We take refuge in Tripojam, but we just recall his, his attribute and his quality is much different from other faiths that sometimes we have come through. Even we are Buddhists, but sometimes we also some kinds of practice in other faith as well, because we still have ignorance. We not realize the truth of the natures. But for right now, as we are faithful to Buddhism, so we try to understand what is the reality of life, and we can find a way out to get rid of defilement, craving, delusion, greed, hatred, all those things that are the hindrances for us to have a purification of mind. So I would like to elaborate a little bit about purification. We all have the defilement like greed, hatred, and delusion. So in the present life, we sometimes accumulate the merit, the wholesomeness, and sometimes unwholesomeness, that the akusala and kusalas come together. We have the right view to practice Dharma, but in the same time, two things always happen to our mind, that is wholesome and unwholesome. So sometimes we are not really a purified one, is unpurified being too, because we still have defilement in our mind. We all know about that. Only Arahanta, the Buddhahood, that eradicate all those defilement. But for us as a human being, as a worldly people, we still have all those defilement. But how can we reduce to refrain from all those defilement? So we practice the morality. So as you experience at the moment that you request the 5 precepts, so 5 precepts is the basis Buddhist morality for all Buddhists, but we have different kinds of morality as you understand and you learn. Buddhist monks have more precepts to be observed, and for lay people we have 5 precepts, 8 precepts, or sometimes 10 precepts. So, but most important thing, we have to be careful of our action. So there are 3 kinds of action, that bodily action, verbal action, and mental action. So bodily action, you know that, like no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct. So it is regarded as bodily action. And verbal action, we have to refrain from telling lie, and slandering, harsh speech, and vain talk. There are 4 kinds of verbal action. And for the mental action are the 3, that is no covetousness, is a You got it right? Covetousness. Yeah. And no ill will. Yeah. And right view. So we say 10 wholesome action through bodily, verbal, and mental. So as long as we refrain from all these things, we will be purified. That means we observe morality, and we accumulate a lot of wholesome action, meritorious deed. We say punya in Pali term. Yeah. And that is the quality of the human being as well. If we notice in the world right now, the virtue of the people is something like people don't care about it. Usually they care of the appearance, the outside thing, like property, like the material, valuable material. So this is the world that challenging right now. Morality is upside down, declining. That's why we see in society, mostly in my country as well, in Cambodia, we are facing all this problem because they did not uphold the morality, really observe Buddhist morality. Even we regard as Buddhist country, but sometimes we don't really practice. As you understand Buddhism, we don't really mention only the theory. The main point, the main thing of Buddhism is practice. So as you know that Buddha's teaching, we have 84,000 units of the Dharma. That is a lot. But one thing is just practice that Buddha mentioned. You know, in Buddha's time, there is a story that a monk, he tried to practice Dharma, but he said, "Oh, Buddha mentioned a lot of expounded a lot of teachings." He said, "Oh, I don't know what teachings, what Buddha's teaching, what Dharma he should practice," and he want to disrobe, and he approached the Buddha, and the Buddha told him, "You don't care all of those teachings. There's a lot. But you just take care of one thing." So what is that one thing? Just take care of one thing, that is our mind. So right now we do meditation, we practice Dharma, that is to purify our mind. This is the main thing. So as long as we are good in bodily, in verbal, and in mental, we will be happy in this world and hereafter, we say next world, next life. And Buddha's time also, there is a man, his name Dhammika. His name Dhammika, yeah. And he's very pious and very faithful to Buddhism. He practiced dana, generosity, he observed morality, and he practiced meditation. So he have done a lot of meritorious deed. And one day he got sickness and he's going to die. And he want to listen to Dhamma, not a Dhamma talk, but the chanting of the monk, chanting about the discourse. We want to listen Mahasatipatthana Sutta. So you know that Mahasatipatthana Sutta. The Sutta discourse mention the foundation of mindfulness. So like Kaya Anupassana, Satipatthana, that contemplation body in the body, contemplation mind in the mind, contemplation feeling in the feeling, contemplation Dhamma in the Dhamma. These four foundation of mindfulness, we say Mahasatipatthana Sutta. And when the monks come to the house and his love, because he's about to die, but he really want to listen to the chanting of his Parita or Sudra chant by the Buddhist monk at that time. And while the Buddhist monk were chanting, and because of his purification of the action, and the deity in Buddhism, we mention about the heaven as well, but as you know that the heaven in Buddhism is different from Christianity. So six realm of heaven. So the beings in the heaven coming to welcome him because he's going to die, and he said, "No, stop." And Buddhist monks here, he said stop. So all those Buddhist monks went back to the temple, and the Buddha asked, "Why you come so early?" And Buddhist monk replied to him, because that devotee asked them to stop chanting. And the Buddha replied, "No, actually that devotee did not stop your chanting. Actually, he said to the beings, the deities from the heaven, to stop coming and waiting him to stop, to finish his listening to chanting." That's why the Buddha mentioned in the verse Gatha, we say, those who practice Dhamma will be happy in this world and hereafter. So this is what we are practicing Dhamma, practicing Buddhism, and we can experience this teaching in our present life too. So as long as we did not commit anything wrong, we feel relaxed and we are happy, we content. We are not afraid of anything, like if we commit wrong, like we stole someone's property, we commit like killing maybe some people, so they are afraid of the law will enforce them. They are afraid of people around, especially for the police. So for us right now, we are sitting here, we're never afraid of those things, right? We are very friendly to policemen, to other people. So this is the advantage, this is the quality of the purification by observing the morality, to be a good people, to be a valuable people. As in Buddhism, we don't mention the value of people by appearance, but by our action, our karma, that we are a good people or a bad people. So this is the first one, Visuddhi, is we say quality of purification. And the second, it is compassion. So if we look at the history of the Buddha, he attained enlightenment at the age of 35, right? And he passed away at the age of 80. So within 45 years, he have done a lot of work for the benefit of the people, of human being. Not only in his time, that many, I think it's uncountable of people who attain Arhanta, who attain enlightenment by practicing Dharma, follow his teaching. But even right now, that we are very fortunate to learn Buddhism and to practice Dharma and to experience the reality of life because of his teaching. So that's why we say he is very compassionate. And we can reflect. Buddha consists of this quality, that is compassion. For us, we can reflect. So to be a valuable person, we have to consist too the compassion. I think we are a Buddhist. We always develop a compassion, loving kindness. But if we look at to the world right now, they not really care about this Dharma, these teachings, sometimes compassion and loving kindness to others. Actually, compassion we can develop within ourselves first, as you might recite at the moment. As long as we have compassion and loving kindness within ourselves, and then we can spread to other people. But sometimes people practice compassion or loving kindness too, but they did not notice it is the compassion. You know, sometimes if we just smile to each other, we develop loving kindness, develop compassion to each other. Because we know that we are living in a suffering world too. We need each other, you know, kinds of confidence, faithfulness. That's why, you know, we always say, how are you? Why people always say how are you first? Why? You know, we always, how are you? I'm fine, saying, and you is greeting. But if we know the reality is that we are suffering, right? And our people always want happiness. That's why we key, how are you? I'm fine, saying, and you is the phrase that we always use is in any nationality. So, but it's just different languages, English or Cambodia. So compassion is very unique in Buddhism. This is the second, the quality of the Buddha, and we can reflect too, and we can practice in every day, and can spread to our young generation as well. That's why Buddhism is, we say, a peaceful religion. And the third, the quality of wisdom. We say Panya. And Buddhism actually is the religion of wisdom. And why the Buddha, he tried, you know, to practice the virtue. We say parami. Parami is perfection, the 10 kinds of perfection, to get a Buddhahood, to attain enlightenment. To attain enlightenment is to got wisdom, and, you know, to discover the reality of the nature. So like we said Dhamma, in Pali is Dhamma or Dhamma Jati. Dhamma Jati is we said nature. So nature is how to say, like no one create, it already exists by its nature. So Buddha, he just discover all those things. So he gives the teaching. So his teachings is just the reality of the nature. The reality of the nature that we can experience in daily life. We see the Buddha's time is past already, right? Over 2,000 years. But why his teaching remain, and we can also practice in the present now, in the present day? Why? Because it's never, how to say, like it's something we produce, it will be expire, you know, like a food, like a medicine. So there will be expire, but his teaching is never expire. We say in Pali, akaliko, akaliko. So there is no time. It's Buddha's time, or another time. Actually, as long as we practice, we will experience all those things. So this is the wisdom, but to realize the reality of life and reality of the nature, I think is very much difficult for the people, because we are deluded and we are ignorant. We say the unwholesome root, that is greed, lobha, and hatred, dosa, and delusion, moha. So we all have this unwholesome root, even we are practicing Dhamma, but it still have in our mind, and we try to get rid of all those unwholesome action. But we can use our wisdom to realize the noble truth. So I think all of you understand about the noble truth, that the first sermon of the Buddha, he mentioned to the five monks in Varanasi. So what are the four noble truths? So the truth of suffering, and the truth of the cause of the suffering, and the truth of the cessation of suffering, and the truth path leading to the cessation of suffering. So as long as we develop wisdom, the quality of wisdom, we can realize this noble truth. And noble truth is not beyond our ability to understand. You know, sometimes we can understand, but to get realization is not possible sometimes, because only Arahanta, who really extinguish all defilement to become the complete enlightenment. But for us, we also can experience and can understand, comprehend all those truths as well, because it exists in human being in the world. Like the first one, the truth of suffering, and the second is the truth of the cause of suffering. And you can see that the truth of suffering and the truth of the cause of suffering, I mentioned two first. So why the Buddha mentioned this the truth of suffering first, and the cause of the suffering second. It should be the cause first and then the effects later, because we always mention the cause and effect. There is cause and there is effect. Everything arises depend on cause and effect. We say hetu, or we might say it's karma as well, cause and effect. Because human being, as I mentioned, we are deluded. We have much ignorance. So sometimes we could not find the cause first. So Buddha have to illustrate the suffering first. So when we mention the suffering, the truth of suffering, what are the truth of suffering? Like Buddha mentioned many kinds of suffering. Birth is suffering, sickness is suffering, what else? Aging is suffering, death is suffering, losing someone, losing something that you love is suffering, and to meet something that you don't like is also suffering. So then all the listeners and followers who listened to his teaching, we all too, we experience, right, all those suffering. This is we might say the physical suffering and mental suffering we are facing every day in our life. It is inevitable. There is no any human being that are born in this world always experience only happiness. It is inevitable. But we have to accept the reality. We know about the worldly dharma. There are 8 of worldly dharma. That is like gain, no gain, honor, dishonor, and happiness and suffering. What else? 4. 8. Yeah. Yeah.
Praise and blame.
Yes.
Yeah. Praise and blame. Thank you. Very good. Thank you. So I might count once again. Yeah. Okay. Gain and loss. Yeah. Praise and blame. What else? Honor and dishonor. Yeah. Fame and defame, and suffering and happiness. So this is the worldly dharma that we experience in our daily life. We have to accept it. So we all got the suffering of we say mental suffering and physical suffering. So as long as we realize it is the suffering, and then Buddha mentioned the second teaching, the second truth, is the craving, is the cause. Craving is the cause of suffering. So he mentioned the first one is kind of like a result, and then second he mentioned the cause. So to illustrate all the listener, all the people, human being, to know and to accept it. It is the reality. We got the suffering, you got suffering, I got suffering too. So we will all find out what is the cause of suffering. So the cause of suffering is craving. So we all have the craving, we say tanha. Yeah. It causes for us very much trouble in our life and suffering, and also to the society, to the world as well. And I think in the present moment, in this era also, because of the craving of the human being, we got a lot of trouble as well, because we are living in society. I just can take example like we are eating fruit, but the fruit in Australia or some in Europe maybe they sometimes they don't use chemical. I think some they use, but they know how to use the limit of using the chemical. But in some other country, Cambodia or some developing country, they try to to get very much benefit. So they use like chemical to get like a fruit to be how to say like to get very yeah. So sometimes it's just raw and then become ripe very quickly, just small, and then you just in inject something, so it become bigger, and the people are eating. So what happened to them? So that's why the lifespan of the human being right now is short, short, and we all affect from those things too, because of the craving of the people. Sometimes they want to gain much, it's not only fruit, but everything, is very modernized sometimes. So that's why we should find out the cause, and if all the human being in this world consists of the teachings of the Buddha and understand about this teaching, we will develop very much compassion and loving kindness too. So this is the second truth that mentioned by the Buddha, the truth of the suffering, the cause of the suffering. And the third is the truth of the cessation of suffering. You see, ultimate bliss or Nibbana. And the fourth is the truth path leading to the cessation of suffering. So you see four. So the first and the second, there's like the cause, the effect and cause, and also the third also is related with the fourth, because the Buddha mentioned the result first, and then he told the cause of it. So how to get the cessation of the suffering? So we have to find out the cause of it. That is, we have to follow the middle way. We say the path leading to the cessation of suffering. So, as you know, dear, in Buddhism we mention eightfold noble path, right? So, eightfold noble path is the middle way. We all, as Buddha, we have to avoid extreme, two kinds of extreme. That is self-indulgence and self-mortification. In our life as well, we can practice followed by the footstep of the Buddha, because he asked the follower not to follow him, because when he was in the royal palace, he really enjoyed a lot of sensual pleasure. So that is self-indulgence. As a practitioner, we should avoid. And when he got self-mortification for 6 years in the forest, you can see the Buddha statue, a very thin one. So those practice, he said we should avoid too, because we're too extreme. So this is why he mentioned the middle way, the middle path. So that is right understanding and right thought. Right understanding and right thought is wisdom, panya, and right speech right action, right livelihood. This is the morality. And right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, it is samadhi. So we can also understand the threefold training that's very important in Buddhism. That is sila, samadhi, and panya. Yes, that is a threefold training. So threefold training is from the Eightfold Noble Path. Or we can say threefold training is the middle way to practice to get the cessation of suffering. So we are right now is developing the sila and samadhi and panya. Actually, we can understand too why we have to observe sila and then samadhi and then panya. Is something we have to understand how to say like in this way, and then in reverse is effect to each other too. Sila, samadhi, and panya, and then sometimes is panya to samadhi, and then to morality. So for us, as I think you have a lot of experience in practice meditation, but we have to observe the precept first. If we have a good how to say like we are purified one, so we will not remorse as long as we are not regret to anything that we commit wrong. So you close your eye and then we can meditate very well. It's sometimes we commit wrong, we just have an argument with someone, you dislike some person, and then you come and sit meditation. I think you cannot find a peaceful mind, because very agitated and remorse. That's why before we observe, we practice meditation, we have to observe the precepts. Or in our lifetime, if we can undertake and observe the precepts every day as a Buddhist monk, or all of you too, we observe the precept. So a very beneficial for the another wholesome action, another good action like samadhi. So sila, we observe it, and then we can practice samadhi. It will be very fruitful as well. And then as long as we cultivate, we practice dhamma or samadhi a lot, and we will gain wisdom. So right now you can understand the reality of life, the nature of life, because we have a peaceful mind, we have a meditation. And for meditation, actually it's not only sitting meditation, but we can practice also inside meditation to gain the wisdom. And we can experience in every movement. We say vipassana. Vipassana we can practice just like we did, just like we do, observe in present, our present, but also in our action. We are like right now, you are listening to my talk. This is also meditation. Or and vipassana too. And vipassana, that means to see things as they really are. They really are. That is, something happen. There is, cause and effect, and we say there is arising and there is dissolving, arising and dissolving. Nothing we can attach to those things. Nothing belongs to us. It is natural way of it. So like my talk at the past, it already gone. So what I'm talking is just in the present moment. So everything we can apply to, and most important thing is to be mindful in every action. We say sati. Mindfulness is sati. But to be mindful in every action is very much difficult for us. That's why we have to train our mind. We say our mind is just like a monkey. So monkey always jump here and there too. So to train is very hard. So our mind is something like that. And also there is example like our mind just like a fish, fish in the water. If fish in the water, nothing happen to that fish. They always enjoy because it's in the water naturally. But if we take the fish out of water to give to somewhere, and then it's always move, right? They want to back to the water. So our mind as well, if we keep it, be calm, peaceful, and not wandering, it's very difficult because our mind is always enjoy the sensual pleasures, through eyes, through ears, through nose. So it's very hard, but as long as we train our mind, we tame our mind, we will be peaceful. So thank you very much for my very short Dhamma talk, and hopefully you can understand something, and just my sharing my little knowledge too. So we can discuss some more, and I think you also can share your experience of practicing Buddhism and your understanding Buddhism, so that I can learn from you too, right? But thank you. So, yeah.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned in and I've found it does help me to understand that everyone is just trying to find happiness. You understand that that's their goal, and if you can relate to that, it helps you. It helps me understand people.
Yeah.
Then you go on to mention the third stage, where you have suffering and happiness.
Yeah.
And we know a lot about, we read a lot about suffering, the types of suffering and the cessation of suffering.
Yeah.
But I struggle with the definition or learning about happiness.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is you can physically suffer but still be a happy person.
Yeah.
You can mentally suffer and still be a happy person. So it's not just the cessation of suffering that makes people happy.
Right.
So could you just expand on the understanding of happiness?
So, I mentioned first about the cessation of suffering is we say the ultimate bliss or ultimate happiness. It is experienced by Arahanta. But for us too, we can experience the happiness as well. So for myself, of course we are suffering from sometimes mental suffering and physical suffering. But if we don't have the teachings of the Buddha to bring to our mind, we will the suffering will last very long and will cause another problem as well. So we experience the suffering, but in the same time for me, I just mentioned like we know ourselves that is just the reality of life. We say the worldly dharma, as I mentioned, the 8 kinds of. Sometimes we experience happiness, and sometimes we experience suffering. So it's happened to our human being. So we should accept it. As long as we accept that thing, we feel happiness. But some people, if we don't have Dharma in our practice, I think they sometimes don't accept it. So if sometimes you lost something and then you always blame someone, and you cannot sleep, etc., and you will got mental problem. But in Buddhism, if we know about it, we just, it is our karma. Sometimes we, maybe in our previous life, we stole someone's property, and then in this life they take it back. So our mind is very peaceful. So what else you can say? Thank you. Maybe someone. Maybe sometime I could not how to say explain very much about it in my English. So ញោមមានអីចែកម្លែកទេញោមចែកម្លែកខ្លះអូខេចែកម្លែកតើតួងនឹង
Thank you very much, Venerable, to share the answer the question of Charles about the happiness and suffering, and then you said that people may get suffering but still happiness, still happy. Is it correct?
No, I think there's just more to it than, like, things will make me happy that
Yeah.
might not make you happy.
Yes.
So it's not a general type thing. Happiness is just specific for people.
Right.
But some people could go through major suffering and still be quite happy in themselves, or they appear to be happy. They could be dying, but they appear to be happy. Yet some people can have everything you could physically want and all their needs met. They're not happy.
Right.
They're still suffering. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get at. And it's different for everyone.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Happiness for me is probably
For
different for you and different for
right.
Venerable Bar. It's and we speak a lot about suffering and a lot about the types of suffering and the causes of suffering. But would we really know if we were happy?
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right,
Do we really
right,
know when or can we just go straight past it and say no, we haven't been happy, and some people seem to get happier easier than other people. That's just my experience.
Contentment, I think
There's a lot of
contentment
things
is
like
very
this, satisfaction,
much
contentment,
satisfaction.
and all of those.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just would like to share that some people relate to physical suffering. Normally, physical suffering and mentally suffering go together, like the two arrows stuck with one arrow, and another arrow stuck afterward. So we got pain, double pain with two arrows. So we train it. We train it just to get the first arrow for the suffering or the physical suffering, but we train it, but we still happy mentally. That's one thing. Yeah. And another thing that relate to loss or something. Some people they have they born as a happy person. So they probably have done some practice from the past life, and then he born with more happiness than unhappy. That's why some they got less unhappiness, but more happiness. Yeah. But as I said, the physical suffering and mental suffering is we need a lot of practice, because these two it normally go together. One, we got suffer physically, we got suffer mentally as well. But when we train like well enough, we can get to just physical suffering, but mentally got untouched. That's I would like to share.
So you can share your thoughts too. I can listen to you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's describing happiness in terms of suffering. That's not what I was talking about.
Right.
It's describing it in terms of suffering.
Right.
I think happiness can stand alone with suffering going on.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Is that being accepting of a situation? Do you think that's
Or just
equanimous.
equanimous. It can be
Yeah.
equanimous and contentment without cessation of
Yeah.
suffering.
Right.
Is that possible, to be equanimous and contented without all your suffering disappearing? I've seen people that I feel that are happy and they're suffering.
Yeah.
They might have a disability, they haven't
Yeah.
accepted, they
Yeah.
might have an
Yeah.
injury,
Accept-
they might have a
Yeah.
mental illness.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I was talking. I wasn't
Right.
trying to define happiness in terms of suffering.
So
Right.
accepting reality. That's
Yeah,
what you
it's
said,
acceptance.
accepting
It's-
reality.
Yeah.
Which is non-clinging, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's
Yeah,
not.
it's-
And I think suffering, happiness is different levels for different people.
Right.
Some people are quite happy with a lot less material things,
Right.
Yes.
and they can put up with a lot of mental problems,
Right. Right.
and they're content. And I just, that's all.
Yeah.
We've talked about enough.
That's it. It's a good topic.
That's good. Thanks. It can go on a long time.
You could talk forever on.
But like me, Cha, you know,
Right.
like me, sometimes I'm suffering at home. When I go to work, I'm just so happy.
Yeah. What does that say about
She means the other way around.
Get out of the way.
you? I like that one.
Yeah.
You know,
Is that because you're busy at work?
Oh yeah, you know, when we get, usually when I got there, I just say hello, and we got a lot of talk. Just talk about this, talk about that, and then if you're close friend, you talk about, oh, this morning I do something at home and they're not happy, just close friend. But it just pass.
I think it's
Yeah.
Works therapy, right?
it's also learning to accept the unhappiness.
Yes. I
Yeah.
think that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learning and
It's not
learning.
true,
When
yeah.
you say learning, it's like what Venerable had just said. Finding the Dhamma, learning
It's
the Dhamma.
not giving up.
It's not.
acceptance.
Yeah, I-
When
Accepting.
you say learning,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of
Yeah,
years
I
of
agree.
experience, and accepting it means learning.
Hmm.
To accept something is to learn about that unhappiness, about the craving, what's bothering you, but you know that it's bothering you, but you've got to learn to take it away.
Or
And,
accept.
or
I think. And
yeah,
then
accept it.
the more you accept it,
Yeah,
the less it becomes suffering.
yeah.
That's happiness
That's-
sort of
yeah,
thing.
right.
Yeah.
The suffering's still there. You've still got a broken leg, or you've still got a leg missing. But if you can do what Reneen's saying, it's not suffering in the end.
It's not.
And it hasn't
You
affected your
learn
happiness
it,
in the
yeah.
end. Yeah, and some people can do that.
So
I don't know whether I
finding-
could do it, but some people seem to be able to do that.
You can, but it will take.
But it
It
takes
will
work.
take time, and
Yeah.
accept that it will take time.
Yeah.
And not expect that.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to be super, but
Mm.
it will take you time. It will take time, and you're still happy to take that time
Hmm.
and walk along those steps.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so, yeah.
No, it's we use the word happy flippantly, but it's probably in the same way as we use suffering when we could use unsatisfactoriness,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Instead of
Yeah.
actual
Instead of
suffering.
suffering.
Because
Yeah.
the word suffering to the lay person or to everyone is physical. You know, not many people
And mental.
take,
Yeah.
and
Mental.
mental is
Mental.
later, but when you say suffering, it's like
Mostly.
got a broken arm or
Yeah.
sore knee or
Most suffering is mental.
but
Yeah,
it-
really suffering is
Yeah.
a poor translation
Yes.
for dukkha.
Yes.
Yes.
And dukkha
Yeah.
covers so many, you know,
Yeah.
Oh,
from the extreme to the minor. But you know that it's that ill at easeness with the way things are. I think, you know, in some ways, I think captures dukkha as being that ill at ease, not being comfortable with existence, how we are. So maybe dukkha and suffering is maybe not a great translation of dukkha.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dukkha is one of those words that, you know,
It's
you
very
can't really
wise.
capture it with one word from
Yeah.
English.
So accepting equanimous or contentment could be used instead of happy.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
acceptance.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
is
Like what
good.
Ian say,
Yeah.
like 2 arrow, you 1 arrow.
Mm.
Like your broken leg, you said, oh, I broken leg, and then another sufferer coming in. You know,
Yes.
you're already suffering there,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
and you say to
At
somebody,
Yeah.
that's not really. You just don't worry about it. Go to get better.
But also it's personal, isn't it?
It's very
The
personal.
very personal suffering and happiness.
Yeah.
Because you
Yes.
can't really, you can think that that person is appearing happy, but you really don't know.
no.
Or you don't
Mm.
know whether they're sad, or you really don't know. It's such a personal thing, what a person's feeling,
Yes.
and how you can't even know how they're coping with either sadness or happiness.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
But I
it's a
think
bit-
what Venerable said is that if we try and understand that everyone's just trying to be happy in their own way,
Mm.
it really helps you. It helps me. You give them more space and you give them more room to be who they are.
Yes, true.
If you just, and
More
I don't know what their happiness might be, but if you understand that we're all just trying to be happy in our own way,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it helps
that's
me
right,
be
yeah.
more understanding and patient. I think.
Yeah.
It's a
More
good place to start, isn't
Oh,
it,
yeah.
Charles?
You're
with
looking at
with
yourself,
going, you
yeah.
know, dukkha is built into living, so, you know, and everybody is going through that. So we share that in common. It's a good place to start. Then we have a good
Let's start
place
with
to
compassion,
start
I suppose,
understanding
isn't it?
and compassion.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's
Comes
where it
in,
comes
yeah.
in.
Mm.
Yeah, like the word say, Venerable Senghai said, you know, sometimes you see people just say, good morning, how are you? You never know that person, but that word coming up to you, oh, that's nice word. Yeah.
I think that was a great point that you made, that
Mm.
I've never really considered that before, that
Never
when we
thought
say,
about
hi,
it.
how are you?
Yeah.
And that really gets back to the fact that ultimately, you know, we are concerned
Yeah,
about
we're concerned
that
about
other
Yes.
people. And I've never,
Yes.
Yeah.
never really thought that, that's part of it, isn't it? You know, of
We
being
never
human.
thought about it
The
until
human-
you said it.
until you actually said it, yeah. It's a good point. It's a really good point.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think it just means good morning.
Yeah.
But does that matter? That doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You've said it. It doesn't matter. But
It's a nice way of saying good morning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
And saying good morning is sort of like saying,
Well, that's
have a,
right.
have a good morning, you
Yeah,
know.
it is,
Mm.
even
And
that's-
you want people to be happy
Yeah.
by saying those things,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it's-
Well, that's right too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
It's the same
depend
thing,
on
yeah.
they say from heart or just
Yeah.
say like a cockatoo.
So what was that?
But it's also
Yes,
important
sir.
that it gets said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just that it
Yeah.
gets
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
What's
It's I
you
think
just get used to it. I went for a walk with my daughter in Sydney, and seeing my mum, don't say hello in here, we don't say hello. I said, what do you mean don't say hello? And I say hello everybody.
Mm.
And they say hello, some of them, you're not worried when they don't say anything, it's fine.
Mm.
Just say hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Acknowledgement of the other person.
Yeah.
yes.
Like
Yeah.
we walk around here
Yeah.
all the time, and then some people, we saw the Chinese, us the Chinese, but it's not, it's a no. Chinese, I said, I'm not Chinese, just take the word, we, I'm not for, just said, I'm not Chinese.
They could have said g'day.
Yeah. Oh, I said that too sometimes.
Good.
Yeah.
I think it's in every culture, like
Mm.
in the Cambodian culture, we just stupid fool, but there's sometimes we do this without even talking. you know, without asking สุขสบายดีมั้งอย่างไม่ได้
Yeah.
สบายดี you know, with just the Jimitsu is not enough to 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 give your compassion by asking how that person is going.
Mm.
You know? You have to take time to say, สุขสบายดี or something like that, you know, which is how are you in Cambodia.
But every culture has something.
Yeah, there's always something.
Like the Japanese have it and Spanish have it, don't they? They change it from morning to afternoon.
Bon
to
dia.
Yeah, it's bon dia or bon afternoon, good afternoon, good morning. Yeah.
Bonsoir.
But how many of us would be patient enough to stand there and listen to a 10-minute medical history when you say, how are you? And they immediately start to tell you how they are. Last week I went to the doctor, the week. So how many of us are patient?
That's why I said it means good morning.
Probably good morning safer.
That word we just get used to it, you know.
That's where you have to practice your compassion.
That's what I mean, the patience.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about what Kathy said too, about when we greet people and talk to people, we don't always know whether they're happy or sad or what's happening with them. But I really think it's important for us to know what's happening with ourselves too, because I think the more we understand our own happiness, contentment, or our own suffering, then we're more able to understand others' contentment or suffering. But we need to understand our own body and our own mind, very much our own heart.
If we observe ourselves and what we go through, the things that cause certain things, and then we can then understand where others, you know, the same things are driving other people as well.
You can relate to
So
them.
when you do make a good examination of yourself,
Yeah.
that's the starting place to understanding
Other people.
other people.
And that can be very confronting
Yeah.
to really understand yourself and look at yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. There is a very short verse of Buddha will say Attanang Upamang Katva, that is we have to compare ourselves with other. Before we do something, we have to like ask ourselves first, do we like this thing? How about others? Do they like this thing? Do they like our word? Do we like this word? So other people maybe like or don't like. So this comparison oneself first.
That's not easy.
Yeah, that's not easy.
Even just remembering that in small conversations isn't easy. I don't find it easy.
Like accepting what, like to gain, like to find happiness, to get happiness. We said about satisfaction, contentment, but the ability to accept is the main challenge, I think. The main challenge for us, for the people. The ability to accept it. Sometimes we don't know how to accept it. That's why we are developing our wisdom through meditation, discussion, learning, Buddha's teaching. So we can experience all those things.
Because really, acceptance is the opposite of craving, isn't it? You know, if you're mindful enough to be accepting, you know, to take yourself out of the situation and accept it, then immediately, you know, you're stopping that driven craving for, you know, the craving that's going to keep you enmeshed in that situation without stepping back out of the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
About the happiness, I think some people were confusing with happiness and sense pleasure. They say sense pleasure, sense pleasure is their happiness, but they're actually just sense pleasure.
Same as material possessions.
Yeah.
A new car is a new car.
Yeah.
And Buddha explained sense pleasure is dukkha,
Yes,
not
that's
happiness.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe a preoccupation with happiness is, you know, the wrong way to look at things, as, you know, looking at the result without actually doing the, you know, applying the Dharma, you know, and, you know, if you're too busy being preoccupied with happiness without actually looking at the things that will, you know, perhaps lead to happiness, then you know, then it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. Yeah, you think.
But as Jen said, people tend to think of happiness as being physically happy and materially well off. You know, and that's
What did the Buddha say? That peace was the greatest happiness?
Peacefulness is great happiness. Yeah. Nati Sandi Parang Sukham. Yeah.
Could you repeat that again?
Nati Santi Parang Sukham. Yeah.
Santi.
Nati Santi Parang Sukham. Okay.
Parang
Sukham.
Sukham. Sukham, yeah, as in Sukha. Sukham, yeah. And Santi.
Nati, there is no happiness than peacefulness.
Then greater than peace, yeah.
Peace,
And Nibbana is peace. We say Nibbana is peace. Is one of the, a good definition for Nibbana.
Nibbana,
The ultimate
ultimate
The
peace.
ultimate peace.
But the great peacefulness we can also experience in present life as well. As long as we understand it and we detach all materialism or some sensual desire, we will get a peaceful mind.
Your English is very good. Oh yes.
No, not really.
very good.
Yes.
Thank you.
But you have an American accent. Not Australian.
Some people say so because
Yeah.
I got my teacher as American teacher.
American?
Yeah.
Some of the words
So did you live in America?
No.
your English teacher was American. Was he? Your English teacher was American?
My teacher is American.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he lives in Cambodia. I think you might know Mr. Bob Mart, that's called. I got
Is that clean? Clean.
no button ball.
No, it's very good. You speak very fluent. Maybe some words that needs to adjust.
Yeah, but I'm struggling with the Buddhist term that I try to explain it to you because if I practice a lot with like a Dhamma talk in this way, I think it's much more better. But I just give Dhamma talk in my language, Khmer, it's a Cambodian language. So.
But you're doing very well. It's very fluent. Very fluent.
Have you had a chance to see much of Australia while you've been here?
No,
Just in the Sydney area?
for my visit, I've been to many places as well. Like,
Brisbane, Canberra.
yeah, Melbourne.
Canberra, Melbourne, Sydney, now Newcastle.
Still we're a capital city.
Not yet.
Classified,
Park.
we're classified as rural.
Oh wow,
What's your country?
we're rural.
We are the second largest city in
Yeah.
the state of New South Wales.
Right.
You're going to Port Stephens?
Tomorrow.
The weather.
Yeah.
You pick the weather
They
again.
don't bring me around.
Tomari Mountain.
Because
Oh, yes, you must go up there.
Mount Tomari.
Continue off and on
Is it okay?
Yes.
for the next 4
It's
days.
so beautiful there.
Reminding you of my granddaughters for 3 days.
I brought the rain. I brought the rain.
How's the weather
Good
tomorrow?
timing.
The weather tomorrow is
So we would like to finish now. So, Venerable Sir, the devotee is devoted to have $65 for Dhamma Puja. So, please will use it for the 4 requisites only. And also we offering $100 for wearable bow and $100 for the wearable hat Shanghai in the money in my hand, and please use for 4 requisites only.
ទាំងឡាយទាំងបុរសទាំងស្ត្រីនោះចូលបាននៅប្រយោជន៍បាននៅសេចក្តីសុខចូលចម្រើនក្នុងព្រះពុទ្ធសាសនាចូលកុំឲ្យមានរោគឲ្យបាននៅសេចក្តីសុខព្រមទាំងញាតិទាំងឡាយគ្រប់គ្នា
ពុនទេយោខាលិតោទុសោពុនធោកាមតុតាំងវណាំងធម្មមេយោខាលិតោទុសោធម្មោកាមតុតាំងវណាំងគេយោខាលិតោទុសោសង្ឃោកាមតុតាំងវណាំង ឥទាំងវោបញ្ញੰមេ